All right. Good evening, everyone. We're here at the beautiful Nordschleife in Germany on the season finale for the Real Rookie Racing GT3 Season 7 event. Looks like some of our racers are out on the track. A lot of people got a lot of laps in for practice this week. We'll let the auto cam run for a little bit here. Let some people get their legs wet, and we will continue to drive. Hey, Purple, how's it going? Yeah, Buggy has family in town, so I'm covering for him tonight. So it will be something. Long track. We'll see how many drivers show up tonight. We've got 7 on the track so far. We'll see if we can manage to get some more. Pulling up the current standings here, see if we have any big battles for position in the leaderboard. It looks like Tommy Boy and Zane are only 1 point apart, so they're really fighting at the top here. Lando's not too far behind, so enough accidents and he can pull his way through if he shows up tonight. It looks like there's still some of these guys have some drops available for the week. Or for the season, even. So it could be a bit of a toss-up here. We've got Dean in contention here for the amateur, or for the pro session. Mateus, Nate, and Josh are all at the top, battling for podium spots in the amateur. We've got Trent, Wasey, and Mahatma Gandhi at the in the rookie league, all sitting at their podium spots right now. But realistically, realistically, depending on who turns up for the race tonight, there looks like there's quite a few positions still available to be made up. But we'll see who shows up and see how it affects the season events. It is a full hour race tonight, and it is worth double points for those who are not showing up. So it definitely could stir things up here. So far on the track, it looks like Zane is the only one with a clean lap. And he's improving. We'll let some people fall into place here and see where they're at. And see what happens. A lot of time in qualifying left, but it does take a long time to get around this circuit. Yeah, that's going to be one of the biggest things with Nord tonight, is just who can keep it consistently on the track, who can get around with the least amount of chaos going on. A lot of these guys do have a lot of experience with the Nordschleife. It is a very, very common, very popular track for hot lapping. So we will see who's done the most rounds in this Aston to see what comes of it. Looks like Zane's currently the only one with a lap up. Turn one on the full Nürburgring endurance layout here does tend to have some chaos during those first couple corners at the start of the race. So it may actually be a benefit to some of these guys starting at the back if they can get through clean. Jump around the grid here a little bit, see if we can see anybody else out on a lap. Dean's going through on the carousel. We've got Trent just coming through, and looks like he either just started a lap or just finished a lap. Patchy just came through on his out lap here, so we'll see what comes in his lap time. And it looks like Dean's also about into sector 3 on his out lap here. See if we can catch some people just starting a lap. Like Zane's not too far into his lap, but he is down a little bit. It's a long track, so there's a lot of time to make up on these corners though. step away for just a minute here. All right. But we got still just Zane with a lap up. He's coming through. He's down in his previous lap. It looks like he might be on another out lap here. I'm gonna restart here real quick. We've got Zane at the top. But my controller's not connected, so I'm gonna have to rejoin here. All right. Let's see who's out on track. My game doesn't freeze. Which it looks like it did. So let's try again here. Let's see, we are last on to bed here. It was towards the start of a lap. Let's go back. Zane's still in the pits. He's got that 8:14.7. Looks like Patchy's just at the start of a lap here, so let's see what he's got in bag. The long track, there's a lot of a lot of places to make or break your lap. Pulling up the EU race today to see what type of lap times are putting up. It looks like 8:06 for Milan at the top there. His average is only about an 8:15 though. Looks like these 8:10 range is about what we're looking at for fastest. And this 8:15 should be about the average for the faster guys on the track here. Well, looks like Patchy's made it through the actual Nürburgring, the GP circuit part of the track, and he's just getting started on the actual Nordschleife itself. There's a lot of turns around this track. We recently raced it in that 4-hour event with the RSS GTM cars, and it was a lot of fun, but there was definitely a lot of opportunities to make mistakes. Tommy Boy here, who currently has a purple sector 1. Jump all the way down to Seb, who has a purple sector 2, but it looks like he made a mistake there. Sideways in the middle of the track. We'll check back over with Tommy here. As he makes his way through Spiegel Curve into Wehrscheifen. I'm really looking forward to seeing some of these guys on the track when they're a little bit closer together. The Nordschleife can become a little bit monotonous and lonely when you're spread apart. You don't really have a real goal other than going as fast as you can. So we'll see what happens. There is a little bit of a strategy difference right now, even in qualifying. This is some people have gone out on the medium tires, others on the softs. Perhaps some of the guys aren't thinking that those soft tires are going to last more than a lap, so they're worried about it getting worn out on their own. We do see Ben on track here slightly ahead of Tommy, and Nate Lynn is also just entering the second carousel here. We do see Zane is out of the pits again on his initial lap. Tommy Boy still got that purple sector 1 and a lot of purple mini sectors in sector 2. So we'll see what kind of lap he can pull out here. When I left and reconnected, I did lose a lot of the telemetry data that the server or that the client already had. So we're not exactly sure where people are until they put a lap in based on their best. Looking at the delta times, it does look like Tommy's up about 1.5 seconds right now on Zane's time. But we'll see if he can keep it together and keep pulling out there. But Tommy did get a purple sector 2 in here as well. And that data may not be 100% accurate due to the disconnect and reconnect. Yeah, looking at the lap times on the live timings instead of what I have in my timing table on the server right now. It does look like Tommy was a little bit slower in sector 1, but he does have a personal best in sector 2. Patchy up right now with a personal best sector 1, personal best sector 2. But he is still a ways back from where Tommy is, so we'll see where Tommy comes through on his lap here. And then we'll switch back to Patchy to follow up the remainder of his lap once Tommy finishes his. Try and catch some of these guys. There will be a relatively long overtime today, so we'll have to see what the laps look like for these guys after they get out. If they're in the pits now, it will be iffy if they are going to be able to get a lap in for qualifying. It looks like we do only have 8 drivers out on the track today. Just hoping for a little bit more of a turnout, but it is what it is. Hopefully these guys race hard, race close, and have a good time on track. We see Tommy going down this final stretch here. He comes in about 1 second behind. A second behind Zane's lap. So Zane's still well in the lead in his. Still well in the lead with his 8:14.7, about a second ahead of Tommy's lap here. Tommy has returned to the pits, so we'll see if he tries to get another lap in. But it's going to be iffy if they can get another lap in this overtime period between the sessions. Looking out, we do have Patchy with a personal best sector 1, personal best sector 2. We'll see where he comes in comparison here to those lap times that Tommy and Zane have put up. Looks like he's about 4 seconds slower than Tommy in sector 2. And a little bit slower than Tommy in sector 1 yet. Looks like his current lap time is about an 8:20. We'll see if he tries to squeeze in another lap after this. But it looks to be that there is going to be a lot of no time set in qualifying. And they're just going to start at the back of the pack. That is a strategy that we do see fairly often in here. We do have a couple other guys out on track. And Apache comes across the line with an 8:42, but it looks like he has a track cut in there. And we'll see if he can manage to squeeze in another lap during this qualifying period before the session resets here for the race. Nate is in the pits. We got Seb out on track. Looks like he's on an out lap. His current lap time is about 10 minutes here, so it looks like he is on an out lap, just trying to get warmed up for the race while he can. If we see something similar for Dean here. Looks like some of the liveries may not have installed properly for me. Looks like Zane's car is just pure black here for me. Got some plain white ones. And it looks like the custom liveries did not install correctly for whatever reason. I just installed them before the race. We'll see. Looks like Apache has abandoned his next lap attempt. Return to the pits. Got Nate in the pits. We've got Seb still out on track doing his warm-up. There's still about 3 minutes left in the quality session. We'll see how it turns out during the race. Zane's just starting his flying lap here. We'll hang on board with him and see if we can get anything special coming out of this. See if we can improve overall. I did lose my deltas here, but it looks like right now he's up about a quarter second according to the live time score. Just through this first little section, so we'll see what kind of improvement we can scrape together. Looks like almost everybody else except for Dean and Seb are currently in the pits. But we'll see where these guys end up. Jump through the board here and see if we can get some other people out on their laps. Like Deb is still on an out lap. We've got Dean here is also on an out lap. Only about 2 minutes left in the actual qualifying session before it moves to overtime, so some of these guys might not get their laps finished. But we'll stay on board with Zane, who will manage to get this lap in as long as there's no major mistakes during his final flying lap of the session here. It was a very old, very long track with a lot of a lot of history. Looking through some of the names, I'll try and remember some of them as I go through. Schwedenkreuz, which I just went through. It's actually a corner where Swedish, essentially Vikings, Swedish raiders, actually put a German tax collector on a cross. It's like Zane had a little bit of a mishap there. We'll see if anybody else is out on the circuit. Looks like Dean is still out, and Deb is likely going to have enough time to get one flyer in for the end of the session here. Hang in and watch Seb, see if he can manage to get a clean lap in. That's all it's going to take to get quite a ways up the grid right now. Even this 14-minute lap that he's on right now, if it is clean, it'll actually be enough to move him all the way up to P4. No, Purple. I don't have any labels designed for any button boxes or anything right now. Like Seb ended up porting back to the pits here. Do we have anyone else on track? Zane, Tommy, Patchy, Trent, Nick, Dean, Ben. Like nobody else has gone through. I'm not going to force this to sit through this overtime period, and I will advance this in just a minute after we hear whether or not anybody else decides that they want to go out on track here. So. All right. So the next one. A lot of entries on the list here. But figured people likely didn't want to sit in the pits for 10 minutes waiting for that next session to start. So looking at the list here, we've got Zaninja, we've got Tommy Boy, Patchy, Trent, Nate Wynn, Big Dean Energy, Ben, yeah. Zaninja, Tommy Boy, Patchy, Trent, Nate Wynn, Big Dean Energy, Seth, Ben, and Sebastian Bellew, all in the track. Goodness. Like we've got our lights up here. We'll see how this kicks off for the season finale of our Real Rookie Racing GT3. Got our lights up. Everyone's off to a pretty good start. We do see some quick position advances at the back there as Seb and Ben pull up quick on Nate Wynn. We do have a very late break here from Big Dean Energy. He ends up sending a little wide going through the corner. We do have some chaos in the back. Looks like Nate got caught up in there. A little bit of a clip. And Tommy Boy ends up pulling ahead at the start of the race here. It's going to be a lot of hard racing for some of these guys in this season finale here. But we're already splitting out into two little groups here. We've got the four at the front. We've got Zaninja, Tommy Boy, Patchy, Big Dean Energy, And then a little bit of a gap back to Seb Bellew, but we still see him in the back there. It is a very, very long track. It is very hard to overtake in some of these spots on this track due to the narrow nature of the circuit itself. So it may be a little demoralizing for Nate getting caught out there. But as we see Dean and Patchy going wheel to wheel, and Patchy ends up getting the worst of it there, getting pushed out into the back. We see him rejoin back up with Ben here and continue up the road. Looks like we're still pretty close up through the rest of the field here. A little bit of gap forming here and there, but our top two are still neck and neck. Meanwhile, Seb and Dean are not too far apart either. Looks like there was a little bit of a collision with the environment here from Ben, but he is still pushing on, right on Patchy's, right on the back of Patchy here. Only about a half-second gap between these two at the start of the race. Looking up, I don't want to miss out on these guys because we know Tommy could make a move at any moment. Tommy is still within a second of Zane here. We are just at the start of the race. We'll see if he prioritized a little bit more of that straight line speed or a little bit more handling through the corners. As we do see Zane start to pull away going through this part of the track. A little bit more of an impact in the backfield there, but nothing too major. We do see that Dean and Seb both decided to go out on the softs instead of medium tire that the rest of the field chose. Looks like already got our first attrition here as Ben disconnects from the server, unfortunately, after some collision with the wall here.
Ooh.
And we see Tommy takes it a little bit too fast in the corner there, but doesn't lose too much time. Hopefully he didn't get too much damage to his car as he goes through. That did give Dean the opportunity to pull up right behind him, though. He's within a second of Tommy Boy now, so hopefully that damage to Tommy Boy's car isn't too much. Dean does have that tire advantage with the soft tire. We'll see how this pans out here. We'll see where the grid manages to pull itself together. But I do expect Dean to not just give up on the fight against Tommy Boy just because Tommy Boy is technically in the class above him. I fully expect Dean to try and make a move here at some point, especially with that tire advantage early on in the race. If he can get that gap pulled ahead, then he might have a chance to even pull up and catch Zane here. But we did see that Zane was one of the only drivers to get consistent clean laps in. Looks like Tommy Boy had another little bit of a moment there, went a little wide, and managed to let Dean slip through the cracks here. Keep a close eye on this battle as these guys are the closest together on the track. It is a very long race tonight. There is plenty of opportunity to come back if you do end up with one of those moments. One of those races tonight where just keeping it stable and consistent throughout the race could end up being what makes or breaks the race for you. Doesn't matter if you're 5 seconds off the pace on a track like this, as long as you're consistent, because people will have moments, people will screw up. We do see Dean is starting to pull away a little bit for Tommy Boy. I'm wondering if he has a little bit of damage from that run-in with the wall earlier. Hopefully not too much. But if we look back towards his car a little bit, we do see his hood is actually popped up a little bit. So maybe he does have a little bit more front-end damage than we'd like to see on his car. As we move into the Sector 3 of the first lap of the race here. Pulling back, we do have Zane pulling a fairly substantial gap right now to the rest of the field. We've got Dean up 5 seconds back, and then the gap to Tommy Boy is about 6.5. So Dean and Tommy Boy are still within about 1.5 seconds of each other. But the rest of the field has started to drift away a little bit. So we will see where this one comes.
Trent having a collision in the back. Ooh, Nate too.
Yep, we got some contact. Trent and Nate just into the walls here. Excellent. Didn't realize you were in here. Well, I mean, I knew you were in here. I didn't know you were unmuted. So. Yeah. Do you have much experience at the Nordschleife? Have you ran very many laps around here?
No, I don't think I've finished a lap at all. I never watched a lot of Misha videos, but that's about it.
Yeah, it is one of those tracks where it is a lot of repetition required in order to get your bearings on a track like this, just due to just how much there is on this track. There's like 147 turns in the full layout like this. It is a very, very, very technical, very long track. So as we end up on this back straight here, as we go past this wall, we will watch as Zane pulls away. We'll see how these gaps have formed so far along the grid and see just how far the gaps are. So there's a 9-second gap from Zane, a short gap between Dean and Tommy. Then we've got a little bit of time here before the rest of the field starts coming through. About 10 seconds behind Tommy Boy, we see Seb come through. And 8 seconds back from there, we'll see Patchy coming through. Then there's going to be even more of a gap here, but it looks like Trent and Nate are going to be battling against each other.
Yeah, just got another collision with Trent.
Yep. I do expect quite a few minor collisions as things go through. It looks like Trent is just making it to the back, but we do see only an 8-second gap between Trent and Nate going through the field here. It is just the end of lap 1. I'm sure some people are just getting their bearings together. And it is just a very, very long, very technical circuit to maintain consistency on. It looks like the grid has spread out a little bit. It looks like Tommy is suffering a little bit with that front end damage from his collision. Looks like he might have a little bit of understeer cost from that front end damage. We'll see if he manages to repair that during the pit stop and ends up putting up some faster laps later on in the race. I'm not sure how long the tires are going to last here, but those softs on Dean and Seb, I do anticipate will burn out relatively quickly with how hard this circuit is on your car. So even as soon as this second or third lap, we should see that gap from Tommy on those medium tires start closing down on Dean, even with the damage to the front end here. Jump towards the back. We've got about a 6-second gap here between Trent and Nate Wynn, but that is already a 78-second gap right now up to Zane. Looks like Zane's definitely put in the time and the effort and gained the familiarity with the track that's required to be successful. It is a crosswind on these long straights, so the wind's not really helping nor hurting in this scenario here. jump back, we'll take a rearward view here of Big Dean Energy to see that distance to Tommy Boy. As he comes to the Ehrenberg curve here. Go ahead and throw it on auto cam here for a little bit. Hopefully we get a little bit more excitement on the track. A little bit closer battling coming up here. But for the time being, it looks like everybody's just kind of settling into their groove, settling into their spot, and just looking to push their races. A little bit curious here on these cars on where they're if you can see which drivers have had some run-ins with the walls, a little bit of extra damage. It looks like Zane's car is still very clean here. He's kept it clean throughout up to this point. Hopefully not give him commentator's curse as he drifts out a little bit wide and almost has a bit of a moment there. Go back towards Dean here. You can see that his car is also in very good condition throughout this circuit here. At this point, and with Tommy Boy, we did see that run-in with the wall as he carried too much speed through that corner earlier. We see the front bumper kind of crumple there, and we do see that front of the hood popped up. It looks like he has a little bit of contact, a little bit of damage on the rear of his car as well. Nothing too major, I hope. Seb, we've got a little bit of bumps on the back there, and his front end is popped up a little bit, so it looks like he had a little bit of contact with either a car or a wall as well. Patchy, on the other hand, looks like he's still clean. I've not seen any damage or any extra wear on this car. Nate Wynn, we have seen his name pop up a few times due to contact with the environment. We do see the front end of his car has also buckled a little bit. See that gap on his hood and the separation with the bumper there. A little bit of crumpling on the front end of the car there. And then same with Trent here. We have quite a bit of crumpling around the body of his car. Hopefully nothing too major, and it doesn't send him back too far here. As he does have another little bit of a moment going through Spiegel curve here.
Broadcaster's curse kicking in.
Yeah, broadcaster's curse. We'll try to separate back, see if we can bring this curse up towards the front of the pack in order to bring them closer together. We do see that Zane is only 5 seconds up on Dean at this point. He was a little bit further up the last time we checked in on them. I think it was almost a 10-second gap here. Looks like Dean may have found something in his lap time that the other guys may be missing. Or Zane may have had a little bit of a moment. It looks like he is 3 seconds down on his previous lap. We do see the dirt around his car, which tends to indicate a little bit more off-roading than these cars are designed to actually handle. Looks like he is spreading the gap from Dean a little bit here still. But Dean's car is still in a very good condition. He does have a purple sector 1 and purple sector 2 of the series, of the lap. So it looks like he is managing to pull away from Tommy Boy. He's split the difference right now. He's about 7 seconds ahead of Tommy and about 7 seconds behind Zane. As we continue through lap 2 of this track. It is a full hour-long race tonight, but given the lap time as being about 8 minutes, I wouldn't expect more than 7 or 8 laps, depending on pit stops and what kind of incidents these guys up to the front end up running into.
So Josh, are we expecting to see 1 or 2 pit stops for this race?
I'm not entirely sure. Looking at the details here, it looks like our fuel rate is set to 250% and the tire rate is normal. So I would expect probably 1 stop over the hour-long period with these cars. They do have a fairly large fuel tank, so I wouldn't anticipate a need for 2. I am a little surprised at some of these guys running the softs. Even in a normal situation where we're not running any additional wear, which we're not in this specific event. The Nordschleife is not an easy track on tires. Even when we were running our endurance race, we saw about a 9 to 10 lap, 9 to 10 lap stint before those hards on those other cars tended to drop off. So I guess we're sitting here looking at roughly 4 lap stints to do a half and half, or maybe a 3 and a 5 with a soft and a hard split. That may be what these guys are looking at, what these guys are going for. We do see that Dean has managed to catch up a little bit more to Zane here, as we saw him off in the distance. Not too far ahead of Dean. Yeah, we'll see what ends up wrapping up with the fuel strategy, with the tire strategy going forward. Some of these guys may be going soft medium and doing a 3-5 stint, or soft hard and doing a 3-5 stint. I'd imagine that these guys on mediums are planning on just splitting it down the middle and running mediums for both their stints, and just splitting it right in half at 4 laps. 4 laps is going to be about 32 to 33 minutes in these cars, if not a little bit longer. So I don't know, Thorn. You've been racing with us for quite a while now. What are your thoughts 20 minutes into an hour-long race? What do you think about at this point in the race?
Normally thirsty. I always fail to drink water before races. Realistically, though, 20 minutes is where a lot of our earlier races would end, so I'm keeping an eye out for any other drivers on the track.
Yeah.
Not a lot of thought behind it besides that. I drive and hope for the best.
Yeah, I mean, that is a good point. We do typically run a 2 by 20 minute race stint, at least in our open lobbies. This season we've ran some longer races in general during the season events rather than running these shorter sprints. But that 20-minute period is definitely where the attrition starts to hit some of the newer drivers. Looking at some of the names on the track here, we've got Dean, Tommy, Sam, Patchy. They've all been racing with us for quite a while here. Zane is a relatively new name to the field, but he has come on strong, battling towards the front of basically everything he's been a part of at this point. And currently him and Tommy Boy are only separated by 1 point. So this being the season finale and a hour-long event, we do have double the points available for these guys. And it looks like Tommy Boy does currently have his drops at Laguna, where his drops are dropping a total of 41 points. Meanwhile, Zane has 3 races in here. Zane has his drop from last week with a 0-point drop. So unless something happens here, I have a feeling that Tommy Boy may end up pulling ahead at the towards the end of this series with the points.
Is there any season rivalries we've seen?
Just looking at the standings here, I mean, Tommy and Zane are only 1 point apart. Botlando and Patrick aren't too far behind, but I don't see Botlando on the track today, unfortunately. Looks like Dean is the only one in his class on the field, so he's probably looking to top this out and pull him into P1 of the pro class, and potentially even edge his way into the bottom of the expert class if at all possible. Looks like Nate Wynn is the only person on track from this amateur grouping, and Trent is the only one on the field right now from the rookie grouping. So unfortunately, it looks like the only inter-class battling we have would be Tommy, the Ninja, and Pashy up in that expert class. But we'll have to see how this turns out. Looks like something may have happened here. The gap between Dean and Zane has extended to about 30 seconds here.
Ooh, that is a gap.
It was looking at the standings, I didn't see what exactly happened here, but it looks like everybody down the field. We've got Dean 30 seconds down on his previous lap. Tommy Boy 20 seconds down on his. So it looks like Dean and Tommy Boy may have even collided with each other. It looks like they may have come together here.
Yeah, looking at their delta, seems plausible.
I'm just looking at the collisions here on the timings.
Should figure out where I can see the.
Yeah, it looks like
history
Dean
of
did
that.
feel like he was at fault. He let Tommy Boy through in exchange for that. Unfortunately, I was looking at the standings on the other screen. I didn't see exactly what happened. It looks like the gap did close down. They did come together, and then Dean did feel the need to give Tommy that position back so they can continue to race.
Patchy having a little incident.
Yep, some low speed contact with the wall there. Nothing too major. We do see Dean is in that tow with Tommy Boy here coming through on this big straightaway. Into some of these final corners here. We'll see what continues through here. We do see Zane has started on his 4th lap. If anybody decides to go into the pits, we are almost halfway through this race at this point. Do you see Dean taking that defensive line against Tommy Boy here? Holding that inside, trying not to give Tommy Boy a way through. Which is definitely easier said than done in some of these corners of the track. While they're in this Nürburgring GP portion of the circuit of this endurance layout, I do anticipate the majority of our overtakes will happen in these areas of the track, just because the track is so much wider through here. Once we get into the actual Nordschleife itself, the track narrows down so much, it's so hard to fit more than a car's width through. So there are a few points where you can safely do so.
At this point, would you be assuming Dean's feeling that tire wear from the softs, or is that not quite a factor yet?
Under normal circumstances, yes, but Dean has been known to be able to nurse his tires better than most drivers. We do see Dean goes for a much earlier braking point than Tommy there, almost causing another point of contact as they take very different lines entering the actual Nordschleife circuit itself. We do see Dean is being more aggressive on his brakes than Tommy Boy. He is slowing down a little bit more, making it more difficult for Tommy to follow him through without causing contact. We are seeing some late braking for Tommy Boy. Hopefully he doesn't catch those brakes too deep into a corner and end up losing it. He is within draft range, but it does look like Dean got a much better exit out of that section of the track. Going through here with most cars, most modern GT3 cars, this is flat, but it sounds like with these guys, they're going to have to lift and potentially even brake a little bit going through that corner. This is one of the highest speed sections of the circuit. Coming through Schwedenfurt into Ehrenberg around this corner here. It was nice to see these guys even 30 minutes into the race. Even though there was some contact, they have kept it relatively close for the duration of this past lap, but it looks like Dean is pulling away. I'm wondering if those soft tires are holding out a little bit better than I anticipated, as we do see Tommy Boy go a little bit wide through that same section of the track again. That is actually one of the sections that I struggled with the most in preparation for our 4-hour race. Just trying to remember exactly where to slow down and not go too wide through that corner. But we do see a 4-second gap now between Tommy Boy and Big Dean Energy. But it's 43 seconds from Big Dean Energy all the way up to Ninja up here. Oh, as Dean, maybe those tires are starting to take effect here as Tommy Boy sneaks through. And Dean is back on the hunt. I'll be curious to see if Dean ends up switching to those medium tires on his pit stop. I do fully expect the first round of pit stops to start here. Though those on the medium tires may be able to get one extra lap and then go for a 3-lap stint on the softs instead of 2 4-lap stints on the mediums. Though we have seen now an incident for Dean both in laps 3 and 4, so maybe those softs are wearing out a little bit more, and he just doesn't have the practice on those hard tires in order to go through and pull that 5-lap stint out with the hards.
I will note his setup also seems to be more top end. Ooh, Tommy Boy having an incident up ahead.
Yeah, it looks like a little bit of minor contact. Ran a little wide. That's actually another section of the track that I struggled to wrap my head around as I was prepping for a 4-hour race. Just a corner that doesn't seem like it's going to be as hard and off camera as it is when you're going through there. This is another one where it can kind of make or break your lap. It's known as Bravery Corner as a nickname for the corner. And realistically, you want to carry as much speed as possible through there. Because there is a lot more grip on the track available than what you would expect. We do see Dean has managed to catch up to Tommy Boy. I'm excited to see if we can hang on here with Dino and see if we can close that gap up even more with his soft tires. I'm not sure how much tire wear he actually has on here right now, though. We do see the car
squirrelish on that exit.
Yeah, we do see the car getting pretty loose on him. But we will be coming in for our pit stops. And looking at the car itself, I don't see nearly as much physical damage to Dean's car as we saw with Tommy Boy's. So possibly, depending on the level of repairs that they end up going in for, Dean may end up with a faster pit stop than Tommy Boy when they do end up going in. Both of them end up going wide through here. Dean has a little bit of a brush up with the wall.
It will be interesting to see how they fare on the straights because Dean's speed, top speed that is, seems to be around 8 kilometers an hour faster
Yeah.
than Tommy's.
It does look like he's running a little bit less aero, or maybe that damage to Tommy's aero is actually increasing his drag through those straights. And we are coming up on the longest straight on the circuit here after this third tree. And we will, and here you can definitely see what I was talking about this part of the track being so narrow. It's so hard to overtake without risking somebody making a mistake. But coming to the straight, we'll see there's about a 1.8 second gap coming into the straight, and it does look like Dean is rapidly clawing back on these straights. We're going to see the castle up in the distance as we near Devil's Diner on the side of the straight here from the tourist layout. At nighttime, even in the Assetto Corsa server, the castle over there is lit up. Super nice, super pretty when you're running those midnight stints around the Nordschleife. We do see that through that straight, Tommy Boy did lose about a second to Dean, but we do see this round of pits coming through.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if Tommy Boy does any extra repairs or if he just goes for tires.
Yeah, we'll keep an eye on his car and see if we see some of this physical damage end up getting repaired here. As Dean drives straight through him, what a jerk. To get his change and get back on the track. Just looking at the damage between these two cars, we do see a little bit of front end damage, but that gap on the hood for Tommy Boy is significantly more than it is for Dean here. Looks like Tommy Boy did not opt for repairs, and he did put on the soft tire. Dean also going back on the softs. Maybe Dean proved and gave the confidence to Tommy Boy that these soft tires are going to do what they need to do for a four lap stint here to finish out the race. We might actually even be looking at 3 laps, depending on whether or not Stain has any major mishaps or ends up slowing down in order to prevent having to do that final lap. We'll have to keep an eye out on the gaps as the time approaches here. If he keeps putting up these 8:20s or so, it's gonna be close. We'll jump back.
Bastion also sticking with the softs.
Yep. jump back with Big Dean Energy, as that's still the closest gap we have. Apache and Seb have actually closed up quite a bit as well here, with only 4 seconds between the two of them going through here. So we do have some fairly close battles that could end up with a single off track, a single incident, settling some of these positions going into this last half of the race here. Looks like they are struggling to get some temperature into their tires. We do see after this quick tire change, these guys are tending to drift out a little bit wider than they were previously, going through these corners. A little bit more understeer. It may be the additional fuel load, as well as the damage that they've accumulated throughout the session so far on their cars, as well as having those fresh tires that aren't quite up to temp, but they are warm. So, like there's about a 7-second gap here between Seb and Pashi, but we're gonna jump back up here to Dean and Tommy's battle, as they've only got about a 2-second gap between them, and we are entering some of the faster sections of the track here, as Dean's car has shown that it does have that additional top speed over Tommy Boy. We will see what happens here going through Ehrenberg. These two have been around since the beginning here. Tommy Boy's been around since pre-season 1, and Dean entered shortly before season 1 as well. These guys have been longtime members of our Discord, longtime members of our community. It's very, very exciting to see these guys still on the track after so long, and the familiarity driving with each other when they are wheel to wheel is something that really shows and really shines. We can see on the leaderboard all of the registered drivers who have unfortunately not shown up for tonight's event, but at least we have some tight battles going on. I would have loved to see a full grid tonight, but unfortunately, as we see, Tommy Boy takes a little bit too much curb and ends up drifting wide there, allowing Dean to close up even more. Tommy Boy is running a little bit more aero. It looks like he does have an advantage through some of these lower speed sections, except when his tires appear to be completely cooked. Unfortunately, I can't see any tire data, so I'm not sure what his tire temperatures or anything like that are looking like. But based on that, it looks like he is potentially struggling for that front grip right now.
Being chased down on an outlap certainly isn't helping with those tire temperatures at all.
Yeah, in combination with he was doing his previous stint on the mediums rather than the softs. You'd think that the softs, maybe he's running either too much pressure and yet not getting enough temperature into them, or maybe not quite enough pressure and they're overheating a little bit compared to those medium tires. It looks like he is definitely struggling a little bit more for that front grip than Dean is.
I would make the assumption he was planning to stick on the mediums, but with Dean catching up so quickly, he decided to make the switch to the softs, but didn't have time to put in pressures.
Yeah, it's possible. With those medium tires, he's probably running a little bit more, or a little bit less pressure than he would with the softs normally, in order to get a little bit more temperature into those medium tires. And if they are still set for his medium tire values, then I would definitely definitely not be surprised if his tires are overheating a little bit here. That is one of the most unsettling spots on the track right there. And you see Tommy is a little bit braver through there and holds the speed going in, but has to slow down to avoid contact with Dean going into that corner. We'll see if Tommy can keep this gap close coming into the long straight up here, to see if we are able to see if he's able to take advantage of that draft going down that long straight past Devil's Diner. If he can keep it close, he does have the advantage through the lower speed sections. But if he can keep it close enough to take advantage of Tommy Boy's top, or of Dean's top speed, which it looks like he's going to be able to, and he does have a very good exit. I wouldn't be surprised if we see a little bit of bump traffic between Tommy Boy and Dean going through these last couple laps, trying to catch up.
No, going for the overtake.
To Zane. Looks like Zane is just entering T1 of lap 6. Meaning that we will likely have 2 more laps unless he intentionally slows a little bit. But if he intentionally slows too much, these two may end up catching him. It is a 40-second gap right now, but that 40 seconds can go away real quick once we... oh, it looks like it's actually up to 70 seconds here. It looks like Zane has managed to keep it clean. And have a little bit less incident than these guys. Coming through the corner here, we do see the sunset coming through. A little bit of sun glare. As we see these cars are getting battered and beat and dusty throughout. If there's any other close battles throughout the field, I think these guys are still the closest that we've got. With about a second gap between these two, if not less, depending on which corner we're entering. But it looks like everybody further back has a little bit more breathing room between them and the cars next to them. Behind Tommy Boy, we've got about a gap of about a minute. In front of Dean, we've got a gap of a minute 10, and then the rest of the gaps here are definitely spread out to the point where a single spin may not be enough to close this gap down, but the first person to make a mistake between these two right now could definitely be the deciding factor, unless they both get caught up in the incident. If it's major enough, it could even bring step value into contention. If these guys have to pit for tires or repairs from major damage. We see Tommy Boy coming alongside. There was actually a major incident into this corner in the recent Nord 24. We'll see if you guys can keep it clean through fluke plat. Looks like Tommy Boy does back out enough to give Dean the opportunity to carry the speed through on the inside there. Going into this high-speed section through Schwedenkreuz, I definitely see that this is one of the corners where Dean does have the advantage. One thing I'm seeing there is going through the corner, these guys are turning in a little bit later than I would have expected. Most of the camber, most of the grip into that corner is actually on the inside. So if you can throw your car into that corner, you can carry a lot more speed. This one, on the other hand, is one that I am very familiar with the walls on. Generally, we want to take that outside line through, kind of like Dean did there. It allows you to carry a little bit more speed through the corner and get a little bit better of a run through here. But we saw Tommy trying to poke his nose in and just throw himself in Dean's mirrors, but Dean's not going to be one of those guys to be easily phased. We do see the sun is setting. We are going to have a night stint in here, which is something that Buggy was intending to happen, which is going to be exciting on this last bit of the race here. We'll be able to see the castle off in the distance with the lights on in the dark that I was talking about earlier. I'll get a little bit of breathing room. We'll take our look through the field here. We're going to jump up to Zane, who is clear in the front, taking his time, spreading his legs, and just vibing through the corners. I see him taking that outside through the carousel rather than dip it down into it. It is more stable to do that, but it is slower. At this point, I don't think he's too concerned about his pace. He just wants to bring this car home in P1. He has had an amazing drive so far. Anticipate that he will keep this up for the rest of this session. Jumping back to Seb, he's had a little bit more of a rough time, but he is well ahead of Patchy in P4 with a 24-second gap. As he flings out a little wide there through the three fast rights into the speed curve here. Patchy about 20 seconds behind here. Still pushing on, still pushing through. Every point matters. It is the final race of the season. There is 3 points. We see the point here that Seb just went off and hit the wall. Nate in the white car, which is probably supposed to have a livery on it, but because the pack didn't install correctly, he's just in a white car. We see him coming up through Fluke Pass here. We do see him slowing down a lot more than the other guys. That is a corner that is flat out in most modern GT3 cars. Meanwhile, we go back to Trent here, who is just exiting the Nürburgring GP circuit at the back of the pack here. Having a very strong drive for his first season out. I know it may not feel like it, but just being able to approach and drive this track for an hour is a huge accomplishment for these drivers. Oh, yes.
Absolutely amazing.
So hopefully this doesn't demoralize some of these guys too much. This track is no joke. This track is a ton of work. And we can see coming through the straight, going through past Devil's Diner. You can see that castle off in the distance with the lights on. As the sun continues to go down, that will light up more and more and be a glowing spot on the top of the hill. It was one of the things that brought me just unreasonable happiness in our 4 hour with the two-day night cycles, just due to how it was. Oh, and I come back to Dean just at the perfect or imperfect time, as he has a huge collision here, and it's gonna have to wait for Tommy Boy to breathe by. Tommy Boy ends up pulling up into P2 here. They are on those soft tires. That was a huge contact and a huge spin. Hopefully Dean's tires didn't take too much heat from that. And fortunately for Tommy Boy, he did not get caught up in that collision as well. We do see it does get very dark around this circuit. There are no track lights around the Nürburgring or around the Nordschleife, other than some very few going through. You see Tommy Boy flashing his lights on and off, saying hello to the camera drone as we go through. Get another view of this beautiful castle in the Devil's Diner as we go through. He must be listening to us. We'll jump back through Dean and catch another look through here. Hopefully he can pull something together here. I'm sure he'll be happy with the podium. I'm sure he'll be happy with the fight that he was putting up with Tommy Boy. I'm sure he will definitely be beating himself up a little bit about that one. We do see Zane is on his 7th lap of the circuit, going through here as we just round the final corners into the Nürburgring GP section of the circuit with Big Dean Energy on board to enter the second to last lap of this circuit, the second to last lap of this race. There will be another lap at the end of this, unless Zane decides there's not gonna be one. Keep an eye on that gap between Tommy and Dean. See if that manages to close down a little bit here. Try and give them some time to get back in their roots as we follow Seb through on this final corner into the GP circuit again. Take it back to Patchy, who is just now flying down this straight on the back circuit into a very dark section of the track. We go into his cockpit. We can see roughly what he sees, and it is just pure darkness going through those corners.
Ooh.
Look back to Nate. We see him go a little bit wide here. He's still going through some of these more technical parts of the circuit. But the mental fortitude to even drive this track for an hour in race conditions, let alone day-night conditions, is a lot. I did this for 4 hours. Definitely understand where the mental fatigue and where the physical fatigue is if these guys have some stronger wheelbases going through these circuits. Let the auto cam take over here for a few minutes. Looks like we've got on board with Big Dean Energy right now. There's a 13, almost 14-second gap to Tommy Boy ahead, but anything could still happen. As we see, Tommy Boy has collision with the environment just ahead. Click through to see if that gap closed down or if he's okay. Like he managed to keep it together mostly. He did lose about 5 seconds there to Dean, and there will be at least one more lap for these guys, given the pace that Zane has out in front. Just looking through the track, it is now late night. Anything not in the headlights of these cars is just not visible at all at this point. Jump back on board with Trent, going through just about to that final straight. Looks like he is going to manage to finish this race without getting lapped in an hour, which is definitely a feat of its own, given the pace that Zane has had, and this being his first season with us, it definitely took me a long time to even be able to do clean laps on the Nürburgring, on the Nordschleife. So the fact that these guys are doing it even after only being with us for one season is, it says a lot about how they've come to grow as drivers. We can see the Devil's Diner, one of the big attractions here around the Nordschleife, and that castle, Neuschwanstein, out in the distance there. But we do see Trent has a bit of a moment here, but he has plenty of a space between him and Zane. All he has to do is bring this car home. He is going to have 2 more laps to finish. As Patchy has a bit of a moment just a little ways ahead of him as well. Nate just entering the Nordschleife itself, getting out of the GP circuit. He's also going to have 2 full laps. I'll jump over to Deb Bellew here, cruising through the night. Really not a whole lot we can see on the circuit or with the cars right now, other than the lights on the cars themselves. It's definitely a different beast when it's dark. It's hard to tell where the corners are coming from. Hard to tell where the track itself is coming from. As we can see back here, these lights are only lighting up a little ways ahead of these cars right now. Looks like when I jump on board, their headlights do light up a little bit more than what we're seeing from the drone camera. Looks like from the drone camera, we're not seeing the bright lights, we're just seeing the standard headlights for whatever reason. But the visibility does appear to be a little bit better for them. Looks like Tommy has closed that gap back down to Big Dean Energy to 1.5 seconds. As I say that, he ends up drifting a little bit wide here into the corner, losing a little bit more speed. And we do have Zane finishing his lap with over a minute left on the boards. That will guarantee that we will have that 8th lap of the series. Hopefully all these guys fueled enough that a 8th lap is feasible for them. They didn't underfuel or overestimate their tires for this one. Let the auto cam go for a minute here. Looks like Tommy Boy may have had a bit of a moment back here, as he is sitting on the edge of the track. Not entirely sure what happened there. He did let Dean build that gap out in front of him. As we enter our final lap of the race, the gaps have spread out quite a bit. We'll jump on board with Zane as he flies through his final lap. And he has been definitely the MVP of this race. He's consistent. I didn't see any major moments for him. No major gap closures. It looks like he has had just a very, very consistent race. Hands down, no contest. Driver of the day for this race is definitely going to Zane Genjo. Runner-ups would definitely be between Tommy Boy and Big Dean Energy. They have had a wonderful battle back and forth most of the race. I'm not entirely sure why Tommy Boy ended up stopping there, or if he had maybe a little bit of an issue with his wheel or something. But yeah, we see that last lap for Tommy Boy almost a minute slower than the lap that Dean had there. Dean put up an 8:28, Tommy Boy put up a 9:20. So definitely something must have happened that made him stop for that last little bit of a race there. Nope, that wasn't the right button. Jump through on board with Zane. We'll ride out the remainder of this final lap with him. See if there is any battles that end up closing down, but unfortunately I'm not thinking that we're going to have anything like that. Zane has had just a very consistent, very clean race, and it looks like he's even up on his PB for this session on this lap. So if he keeps this clean, he may set the fastest lap of the race as well, which he currently already holds. Just asserting a little bit more dominance over these guys coming through this last bit of the race. We did see that Zane was the one in qualifying as well, who was putting up consistent lap times. He definitely has shown that he can definitely drive with the more experienced, more seasoned drivers on our track. Perhaps he got more practice in than the other guys, and that consistency definitely showed through. But just running through this last bit of the lap, he's got about a minute and a half left on his final lap of the stint here. As we come down, we make our way through. I'm tired. Make our way through on these final corners, going into that long straight between before the final chicane into the Nürburgring GP. We'll just jump through the field as Zane finishes out. There is quite a bit of a gap right now between these guys. I don't expect the opportunity to be able to sit and watch from atop the start-finish line like we normally do. Looks like Trent is just finishing his final lap as Zane is coming down the final straight. Under the welcome home sign, down into the final chicane, going into the Nürburgring GP, and finishing out strong with another consistent quick lap with an 8:16.7 for his final lap of the series. Head back to Big Dean Energy. We'll finish out his lap with him. We'll jump back with Tommy Boy and Seb and Patchy and run this race out into the end. So what do you think, Thorne? Do you think that you could have done what these guys did tonight?
Without any prep, definitely not. This is a long track. I didn't entirely realize that lap times were 8 minutes. I thought it would be more around 4 minutes, to be honest, but I've been proven wrong.
Yeah, it's definitely a long track. I think our 4-hour race ended up only being around 28 or 30 laps over the course of 4 hours.
That is wild.
And the Nord's 24-hour event was this past weekend.
Spa's coming up shortly, correct?
Yep. Yeah, and Le Mans was 2 weeks ago. So definitely a lot of big endurance events coming up.
Rabbit.
We do have the ESRC Bahrain event on July 12th as well. I know you've been pretty involved with that. I set up the infrastructure, but I haven't been too involved with the planning.
Yeah. Just yeah.
So
It's been interesting.
yeah, there's definitely a lot that goes into it. As we see Big Dean Energy crossing the line in second place, we jump past. Tommy Boy must have just gotten hungry. He smelled Devil's Diner, and he just got hungry on the previous lap. He just wanted a snack, but I guess they were closed, so when he pulled off to the side of the circuit, no car side delivery today. But he's coming down into the final chicane, entering the Nürburgring GP, and finalizing his run in Season 7. I believe that his performance tonight does cement him into P1 overall, but we will have to wait until Buggy has the opportunity to do his final calculations here. But I believe that this third place finish is going to be enough for Tommy Boy to pull ahead into, or to maintain his first position and get that gap to the minute. Actually, Zane's drop was a 0 his previous drop, so he's just gaining points here. Tommy Boy would be a 46-point event in third place. And he has 41 points, so Tommy Boy's only gaining 5 points Meanwhile, Zane is gaining 50, cementing Zane in P1 overall with his 0 point
Well,
loss.
I'll be.
I believe. Yeah. I believe that brings Zane into first overall for this session, for the event. Jump back to Patchy as he finishes out his lap, entering the Nürburgring GP part of the circuit here. I'll have to wait for confirmation from Buggy here, but I believe we may have a first-time champion of the season with Zane here.
Very exciting.
Now, Tommy Boy may be a little bit frustrated. I believe that he came in P2 in MX5s this week as well. Just barely scraping off the top step there. We got 2 more drivers finishing their time out. We got Nate coming through. We do have Zane still out, cruising his victory lap. And he does happen to be catching up on Trent. Hopefully he slows down enough to let Trent finish his race without too much interruption here. You can see, going back to Zane here, there's not too big of a gap between Trent and Zane on that final section of the track. Zane definitely had a hell of a race here. I would not be even remotely upset with that performance. As Nate enters into the final straight, passing the Della's Diner. I got ahead of myself. He has 2 more corners first. A long circuit. As we go through the final carousel. Into the final corners, down into the long straight of Göttingen. Past the Devil's Diner, past the castle. And down into the final chicane, entering the Nürburgring GP. One last time to finish out his Season 7 performance. And bring him to the top of the amateur racers. And jump back and wait for Trent to finish up his final lap here. Topping out the rookies, getting first overall in the rookie split.
It looks like Tommy Boy's got some stuff he wants to say.
Tommy Boy's got some stuff he wants to say.
Uh-huh.
Tommy Boy.
You've been slandering him.
Been slandering him. Well, Tommy Boy. Well, Tommy Boy.
Sir,
speak.
I have some words for you.
You have some words for me.
Yeah, by the way, I wasn't flashing my headlights for the bot, by the way. Or flashing it for the camera. No, my fucking wheel, excuse my language, everybody, my wheel, I didn't have a binding for the lights unless I held it.
Ah.
So,
Oh.
20 minutes. I was holding the light, and then I'm like, you know what? On the last lap before the straight,
Yep.
I'm gonna yank my wheel off, and then go and grab the one that I think had the proper like button layout for. I got it, and it worked. So I was not grabbing a snack. I was not.
I figured you were hungry sitting next to Devil's Diner there on the straight.
I was honestly, I am very hungry, but I was very much so just at a loss of. My hand was cramping, holding a button that was in place that was not very ergonomical.
Well,
I came in P1.
We definitely
I
had
came
a
in
hell of a
P1
race.
for the fucking for the MX5s. I won my class. Parmesan always kind of wins.
Oh yeah. Did you end up ahead of
Half a point.
ahead of Raven? Oh yeah, it was
Half
close,
a
wasn't
point,
it?
yeah.
A half a point. I knew it was close. I couldn't recall. But I do think that Zane may have edged you out on GT3
Oh, he
here.
absolutely did.
He had
I talked
hell
to him
of a
about
season.
this. He's in love with what do you call it? The endurance maps, and we saw quite a bit of that. So
Yep.
it was a great time for him. It was fun to race him for sure. Man, oh man, I gotta put more time in these goddamn tracks before I start the races. But
Yeah.
other than that, gentlemen, I bid you a good night.
I think it's gonna be.
No.
I think it's gonna be close, but I think he did manage to edge you out. So
Oh, he
Thanks.
absolutely did. He did really good.
yeah, thanks for jumping in, Tommy. Thanks for giving us an entertaining race to watch. And with that, I will end the stream, and we will finish our season 7 broadcast here.